So we slept in the park a few nights and nearly died.
How do you start, instead of going the other direction, become an alcoholic yourself? Because, in most cases.
I mean, I just got to a stage where I fought back. And the next thing I remember, I was chasing 15 guys down the road, saying, "Come on!" My purpose is very clear, and that is to help make homelessness obsolete. Technology allows me to build a house for $4,000 in one day on a 3D printing machine.
What is one biggest tool that you feel benefiting the most?
I'd have to say that one of the most important thing is your mindset and the realization that literally anything is possible. And that comes back to your imagination.
My guest today, Marco Robinson. Many of you might have heard about him. Man does amazing things all over the world. But first and foremost, he's a survivor. He knows how to get out from difficult situation, difficult life situation, difficult business situation. And this sets up a beautiful conversation. Marco, first of all, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So just to start, even though this is not the main point of the conversation, I'm really interested about you, about how you go about making decisions, doing things, and ultimately getting to where we all want to get to, which is some level of happiness. What are some of the biggest things that you're involved in right now professionally?
Professionally, the main thing I'm involved in, my top of the tree, is most definitely philanthropy. So my purpose is very clear, and that is to help make homelessness obsolete. So to come from that background of being homeless, of being in dire situations, to see all that yourself and experience it, gives you the clarity to say, right, okay, that's the situation. What's the solution? Okay.
And philanthropy, it's a beautiful thing, and there's a lot of nonprofit entities, but all of them are based on hoping that somebody will help them out. Right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
it's based on hope rather than
exactly.
And execution.
I always find it fascinating because when I talk to people who run nonprofits, my question always is, but what's your business model? How are you going to finance it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or are you just simply planning to be dependent on who gives you $1? So how do you approach this?
Well, charity is the most abused industry in the world because it can be. It's taking advantage of people's guilt and emotions. But actually, when you send money, you don't really know if the money's going to get there. You don't know where it's going to get distributed to because 90% is lost in an organization where it needs paying for. So non-profit is actually an oxymoron, really, right? So my charity, and I don't really like to use the word charity, I'd say social impact. It's based on a philosophy of conditional altruism. I help you if you help somebody else. And everyone gets paid. So if I can change the model, like you said, the business model, because it is essentially a business model.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree with this 100%. Anytime I talk to nonprofits and I say, well, I don't see much difference with the business.
No, there isn't.
You really want to run it well.
Because the volunteers don't get paid.
Right.
So yeah, everyone feels really good about helping people, but at the end of the day, what are you getting out of it? I know that sounds kind of ruthless, but it's not like money. It's like, what are you getting out of it to improve your life? If you help someone else, you've got to help yourself. There's got to be something in it for you.
And one of the things you help people with is some of the most fundamental need, and that is shelter.
Yeah.
Am I right? Can you talk about it a little bit?
Well, housing is has become one of the biggest issues in the world because there's not enough housing. But I wouldn't say not enough housing, I'd say affordable housing. Because in every country in the world now, to actually buy a house is so difficult because you need a deposit that doesn't match actually what you earn as a salary. So most people don't actually end up buying a house, they end up renting a house, and then they can't afford the rent because the rent keeps going up. So you've got a situation where it creates so much stress in people's lives, it becomes like, I've got to get a house, I've got to get a house, I've got to get a house. And sometimes you never achieve it. Now, the truth is very different. The truth is that technology allows me to build a house for $4,000 in one day on a 3D printing machine.
Now, that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
When we talk about technology, what specific technology are you referring to?
Well, this is 3D printing.
Okay. So you actually use 3D printers to print out the blocks of the houses, put them together.
Correct.
Wild. And the whole thing is $4,000.
$4,000.
Okay.
So and it's coming down in price.
Okay. It has to be in the warmer climate zones, I assume.
No.
Really?
No.
So it was
That's including insulation, the whole deal. That's for an 800 square feet house.
Wow. This is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
And how many families have you helped so far?
Well, I've probably helped about 100 families so far.
Okay.
Right, in total.
Okay.
but I'm scaling. And to scale, you have to have an architecture behind it, and a technology and a structure that is, basically bulletproof.
I see.
Yeah. So blockchain technology allows me to do that, because blockchain technology allows me to track the donation, where it gets to, and make it transparent where the costs are to actually help that person.
I just wanted our viewers to get some perspective of what you were involved in. And I know before that you were involved in quite a few businesses.
Yeah.
And you are, on some level, dealing with the real estate. You were also involved in other businesses, value proposition to employees of large corporations, in terms of travel-related, other things. So now let's step back.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of information I know people could find about you, about other things in more detail, what you do. I'm really curious about someone like you with your starting point. How you got to where you got, and your thinking process that others could benefit from when you make decisions, personal, professional. So from the starting point, I mean, you didn't have it all set up. I mean, I talked to students on different campuses, and they all say, well, I have a bad starting point. I don't have anybody to help me. Well, you were pretty much homeless yourself, if I remember correctly. I heard you speak in Europe somewhere. So can you just share how you started?
I'll tell you my story briefly.
Yeah.
So when I was 2 years old, my mum left my dad. He was a gambler. So literally, you know what gamblers do. I've seen it close up. They spend everything and they don't care about anything else. Just like alcoholics, just like drug users. It's an addiction. So because of that, she had no money. She had no economy in the house. He took all the money and kept taking it. So she had no choice. She was 23 years old. Now, when she was 12 years old, she told me this only last year because we're doing a background story for the TV show. She told me that when she was 12, her stepfather said, I didn't marry your mum for your mum, I married your mum to get to you. And she was sexually abused as a kid for many years. So she had to go back to live with her mum and her stepfather, but she didn't want to do that because she knew what she was going to get, And she came back, it was -5 degrees that night, and I was 2 years old, and she said to her mum, listen, we've got nowhere to go. And the stepfather was there, and the stepfather said, it's either her or it's me. So they wouldn't let us in, and we had to sleep in the park. Right? You can imagine how terrified she was, even to approach that environment again. So we slept in the park a few nights, and we nearly died. And eventually, friends of friends let us in. For 8 years, we were on and off homeless. And she was not qualified in terms of education. She didn't go to university, but she was very clever. It's just that she didn't have that education degree or anything like that. So her jobs were very low paid and low, qualifies. So she went and did that, and then she married another guy, and I had a stepfather, and he was kind of nice, but then he turned into a bipolar. And that bipolar term was not around then. It wasn't a label then. So you didn't know what it was. All I knew was, as a kid, I would go home from school and there'd be an argument going on and she would get hit or thrown down the stairs or some stuff
Your
like
mother?
that. Yeah, my mum. So when you're a kid, you can't deal with that. I mean, I can fight the guy, but I'm too small, So I would do what I could, but I'd end up crying under the bed most nights because I wanted to escape from it. So literally, I eventually learned from that I actually escaped into my imagination because I had nowhere else to go. I would go inwards rather than going outwards. And that was actually a blessing because I learned to use my imagination very cleverly. So I would visualize what I wanted to do to not be in that environment. And of course, that was a pain trigger. Psychologically, that was a pain trigger or a desperation trigger. So I learned that desperation was a very powerful trigger to get me to take an action that would get me into a better place.
How do you look back now at what you just described, those memories, mother being abused, the whole living environment? Does it still bring you pain, or how do you see this whole path?
Well, actually now it's redemption because that's given me, I'm in Washington, D.C. I travel the world.
Some people cannot come out from these things. They're just sitting and dwelling how painful their life is, and how unfortunate they are. So when you look back, what does it give you?
Well, it's kind of, the lesson from that is that nothing is final. There is always an answer. It's just that people are not given the tools to actually use to get those answers because they're in a system of indentured servitude from the parents, the grandparents, up to where they are now because the school system does not teach anybody about entrepreneurship, financial success, or confidence.
But nobody taught you these things either when you started, that's my guess.
They didn't teach me those things, and I guess...
So how did you, I'm really curious, in that situation, and this is the environment you came out of, How do you start, instead of going the other direction, become an alcoholic yourself? Because, in most cases, abusive family environment causes kids to be abusive themselves in the future. Alcoholics, gamblers, that kind of follows down the chain. So with you, it seems like it's a different story. So how did you go about things? I mean, you mentioned desperation. I mean, that was a big push for you. Is that what it is?
Desperation was a big push because I don't have an answer to all those questions, to be frank, I mean, I just got to a stage where I fought back. I thought, fuck this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not standing for this anymore. I mean, I'll give you one example. I was bullied at school everywhere I went because I went to a lot of schools. So I was always the new kid with bright orange hair. I got bullied all the time. And I was in a garage one day at my friend's house, so-called friend, and he had 15 friends and they were throwing me around, punching me and all that kind of stuff. Then 1 minute I saw red and literally lashed out. And the next thing I remember, I was chasing 15 guys down the road, saying, come on! Because I literally reached that tipping point, I couldn't take it anymore, so I just fought back. That was my answer. I was fed up of running away.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. And
where was it, by the way? Where was your childhood?
Well, that was in the north of England. So it was in very small towns, because we used to travel all the time to get work. So I'd literally spend 3 months in one school and I'd be in another school. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, because this is one of the big things that bothers a lot of people. People spend their entire life going through psychotherapy, trying to kind of undo the pain that childhood brought up. Do you still experience pain about your childhood, or how do you?
No, to be honest with you, a lot of psychotherapy, a lot of this stuff, I think, makes it worse because you're analysing it all the time, and you're living in the past. You shouldn't do that. You've got to learn to say, right, that's the past. What have I learned from it? And just be grateful it happened, and move on.
And grateful. What exactly are you grateful for?
I'm actually grateful for all of it.
Why?
Because without that past, I wouldn't be sitting here with this interview, talking to people that I'd be able to reach somebody with a message that might inspire them to say, right, if he can do it, I can do it. I'm
Beautiful.
Very grateful for that.
Beautiful.
That's an amazing opportunity for me to get a message out. And the other message I have to tell you while I remember, because I'm getting old now, I forget stuff. So, desperation is what I learned how to get out of very serious problems. But the opposite side to that, the flip side to that, is inspiration. So I learned to find people that I couldn't access Tony Robbins and people like that because I financially didn't have the money to do it. But I learned to read books and I learned to get help, and I got inspired by role models that had been through similar things to me, and I put myself in their world.
Through the books?
Yes.
Interesting. So what is the biggest book that had the biggest impact on you?
Well, that's another story, because when I was basically, I didn't really go to school. When I did go to school, I hated it. I was daydreaming all day. And I had 5 jobs by the time I was 15, By the time I was 21, I got a job in commission-only direct sales when I was the worst salesperson because I had no confidence. I was really shy. I had years of abuse and I just couldn't talk to people very well. So, and the direct sales job is the worst job you can have if you're shy, right?
That's right.
So I was the worst salesperson.
It's also the best training ground.
It is the best training ground. So I was the worst salesperson for like a month. And the boss said, listen, if you don't sell next week, I'm going to have to fire you because you're not getting any money in.
Another desperation setup.
Another desperation. So I thought, oh shit, what am I going to do? So my question for a long time then was, in that period, why am I so bad at sales? Why am I such a loser? Why can't I talk to people? It was a very negative question. And then one day, in that week when I was going to get fired, the top salesperson came up to me and said, listen, Marco, I heard what the boss said. I used to be like you. I was the worst salesperson. I read a book. It changed my life. And I became the top salesperson. You've got nothing to lose. I'm going to give you this book, but don't tell anybody you read it. Just keep it to yourself. So I said, okay, nothing to lose. So I took the book from him. And I had to walk home then. And there was no car or anything like that. And it was a 5-mile walk. So my question changed when I got that book to how can I be successful from why am I so bad at sales? So I learned the questions that you ask yourself provide an answer and a possibility. So I kept asking that question all the time. Went home, read the book, and I read it 8 times in that night.
You have to mention the book if you remember.
The book is called Bring Out the Magic in Your Mind. It's an old book. It was written in 1957 by a guy called Al Koran. And he was a magician in London, a very famous magician at that time. And he would do amazing things, like he would guess your age, he would guess, if you put something in an envelope, he would guess what it was, stuff like that. And it was just the right book at the right time for me. And I read it 8 times. And when I got up, well, I didn't go to sleep, but when I finished reading it 8 times, I was so full of energy and electricity and enthusiasm, nothing would dent me. Nothing would get in my way. And I ran to the office. I said, listen, I want the next customer. But I was so hot with sweat because I ran, they sent me home. Even though I was about to get fired, they sent me home. Anyway, I got back to the office, and my first prospect were actually both blind. He was blind and she was blind. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to sell them timeshare? They can't even see it. And it's intangible. It's not even tangible. So I thought, okay, never mind. Don't care. Nothing to lose. So I said to them, I said, listen, you're going to buy timeshare from me today. You're going to spend £10,000 and you're going to sit there for 5 hours and you're going to love it. And that's the first time I had confidence. Nothing to lose. I just didn't give a shit. And they said, no, we're not. We're going to go in a minute. I said, no, you're not going to stay there. So I kept us having this argument for like 6 hours. It was 6 hours later. 6 hours later, he got his credit card out and said, there's my credit card. There's £10,000. I want to buy this right now. And you were right.
Not giving up.
Not giving up. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, this is the first success I've really had in my life, you know. So the first question I asked him was, why did you buy from me? And that's the worst thing you can ask as a salesperson, right?
But it's the most important one.
It's the most important one, because I wanted that feedback. It's like, oh my God, this is like just happened to me.
That's how you replicate.
Exactly. So they said to me, they laughed at first. Said, what do you mean, we're your first sale? I said, yeah, you are. And they couldn't believe it. And they said, listen, the reason we bought from you was because we believed in what you were saying. You transferred your belief to us, and it gave us goosebumps. And we saw in your belief exactly what the product was, and we loved it.
Did you actually believe that was?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it unless I believed in it. So I was sold on the product, but I wasn't sold on me.
Well, that's the key part.
That was the key part. So when I got myself sold on me, after that point, salesperson of the year, 5 years running, nearly took over the company, got offered a job in Malaysia to run a public company, which I took, turned it into $1 billion company, and the rest is history. However, there was lots of challenges on the way, because at 29 I had a heart attack. My wife had an affair with my best friend. I lost all my money on the stock market. But those were small compared to where I started. The heart attack wasn't small, but it was more pain with the affair with the best friend than a heart attack. So there's still challenges along the way. It's just that, like you said at the beginning, I had more tools to cope with those. And I put perspective in it, because, hang on a minute, you know, I'm running a public company with $1 billion, and here, before I was homeless. So when I look back, I gave it perspective. It wasn't a big deal. The heart attack was the scariest part.
You attribute the heart attack mainly to the life event?
Yeah.
Very interesting. How did you come out from that? Just looking back at this perspective?
Well, looking back, I decided after that experience, I didn't want to have a boss in it anymore. I didn't want to work for anybody. I was just sick and tired of it. And I realized that was the cause of my stress, because I was trying to please people too much. I was basically, I learned a survival skill of pleasing people, which most people actually use too often, rather than serving themselves.
It's interesting, because a lot of people feel there is much more stress when you are the boss and you have your own place versus when you work somebody else. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with it either, but I'd love to hear your reasons for it.
Well, I think people rationalize that because they think if they're an employee, they don't have the responsibilities of a boss and an entrepreneur, which is true, right? But the problem is they're not doing what they love to do. So they have this inner battle with, I don't love what I'm doing. So your heart's telling you, why are you doing this? You don't love it. You know, and the biggest disease in the world is heart disease. It kills 51% of the people on the planet. But it's not because of a physical thing. It's because heart's telling you for years and years, why the fuck are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing it.
And that's like quiet internal stress that contributes to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good perspective. So fast forwarding and looking back professionally, what is one biggest tool, approach, perspective that you picked up based on your experience or for somebody else that you feel benefited you the most in terms of being able to accomplish what you've been accomplishing over and over again?
I'd have to say that one of the most important thing is your mindset. And The realization that literally anything is possible. Anything is possible. And that comes back to your imagination. So, Einstein labeled the imagination the most powerful tool you have because there's no limits. Knowledge is limited, imagination is unlimited. So once you can tap into that infinite resource, that's where the magic happens. And you can turn it around in literally seconds. Even this morning, I was wondering what presentation I'm going to do for this event. So I'm going, I'm not really happy with it, something not right. So I had my breakfast and I had this idea. And I'll share the idea when I speak, but the idea basically completely changed the presentation and made me feel good about it. Now I know when I deliver it, I'm going to get a better response. So that's what I mean by asking yourself questions. How can I improve this presentation today? You get an answer.
So there, on the professional end, and of course they all, professional and personal correlate tremendously, right? In many ways they're interdependent. But what I've heard from you so far, just some takeaways, I've heard desperation.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest push for you, and energy boost. I've heard imagination. A lot of people kind of, they don't even know how to dream anymore. You ask them what they want, and they'll give you something that will not make them happy because they're never really thinking beyond that. And so that's very interesting. And in my experience of speaking with super successful professionals, resilience is one common element among all of them, and that comes back to how we start our lives. So this is great. I want to talk a bit about personal side, if you don't mind. So at the end of the day, we're all want the same thing, and that is to be happy, right? Are you happy, and why?
Yes, I am happy. And the reason I am happy is because I have freedom of choice to do what I want to do. So that's on the personal side. The other reason I'm happy is because my purpose is very clear. So everything I do has a purpose. And when I achieve those little things towards that purpose, I get fulfilled. So...
Are you fulfilled right now?
Yeah, very fulfilled.
So when you wake up in the morning, what kind of feeling do you have?
Well, I'm very glad to wake up in the morning in the first place.
Well, that's great. That's so interesting. I talked about the other day. I did a lecture at the CUNY campus that they live streamed to all students. I think there's over 270,000 students in CUNY campuses. And the biggest thing, as I was speaking and about the gratitude and appreciation, one student got up and said, "What if you don't have anything to be grateful for?" And it was so interesting. And we talked about the fact that he's standing up, he could see, he could speak, and all these other things. And this is exactly what I said there. I said, just the fact that you woke up in the morning, this is your biggest blessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is where it has to start, and this is where it ends. Because at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing that matters. And you did nothing to deserve it,
Yeah.
And it could stop at any moment. So gratefulness, huh?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So what are the little things? Do you have any routines that work for you that you picked up that you follow, you in good shape?
Exercise is a massive thing for me.
So what's your, you wake up, what time do you get up, first of all? How many hours do you sleep? That's not the question I get asked
it's
all
an
the
interesting
time.
question, that, because I've been on a plane for 2 years, so it's not really I'm not happy with the routine right now.
Okay.
But normally if I'm in one place, pint of water, coffee, love a coffee machine in the morning, get on the treadmill. So I do my cardio every day.
How long cardio?
45 minutes.
45 minutes.
Like a fast walk on a machine. And then 4 times a week I go to the gym and do strength work and weights. So I'll do different body parts 4 times a week and rotate that. Mm-hmm. And I watch my diet, and when I finish the gym, normally I'll come back home and I'll working on projects. So I'll take my calls with my team, stuff like that. And then I'll start working on a project. I'm halfway through or finishing or beginning or something like that. That's really my routine.
When did you start checking your phone? The moment you wake up?
No, I used to do that. But I found that if you start checking it instantly when you wake up, because you're just waking up and the energy's not coming to you yet, I don't want to go into that stress level. So I'll put it to the side I'll go make myself a tea or some water or something like that, and my coffee, and I'll wake up first. And then I'll go to the phone.
And then you go to treadmill?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, you just mentioned stress, right? It's inevitable.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you're involved in something, stress is going to be there. How do you deal with stress?
Well, stress is something, the only way you can deal with that is by taking action. Because if you're experiencing stress, it means you're leaving stuff hanging. And you're not addressing it. Or you don't have the tools to address it. So you have to do something about that. And if you are having stress every day about something that's repeating the same thing, that's going to have to be the top of your priority list to get sorted out. So the only way to deal with stress is massive action towards a solution, to find a solution. Not to experience that stress, you know. But there are different levels of stress. Some people think stress is having to get a train to work, you know. Some people think stress is having to deal with the kids. Some people think stress is, I don't know, back pain or something like that, which is a bad thing. But the only way you're going to address all of that is to actually do something about it. The worst thing is thinking about it all the time, because it gets worse and worse and worse. Because whatever you focus on expands in your mind, and then you experience more stress. That's right. And then you go into a doctor and you go to psychotherapy, and it's a mess, and you never get rid of it for the rest of your life, you know?
So you go after all these stressors and
Yeah.
try to do what you can. How successful are you at it?
Very successful. Very successful. I mean, if people had, I look at people around me, if they had the stuff on my plate, they would, a lot of them would go, holy shit, and they would go, no thank you. So it's all relative. If you have the tools, the stress level can be dealt with. If you don't have the tools, the stress level takes over.
So on the level of 1 to 10, your average stress is where daily?
I would say 2.
2.
2 to 3.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's excellent. So stress, one of the best ways to overcome it is also through some happy elements, happy moments. Make you feel
Yeah, you've got to
relaxed
learn,
and
you've got to understand that your downtime is more important than your uptime. I mean,
so that's exactly where I was going.
yeah.
So what are some of the things that bring you almost instant happiness? Or what are some of the things that you go after that you know this is where you rest, where you could address stress, besides figuring out how to deal with the cause of stress? But
Well, I think what gives me the most happiness is really doing what I love to do and staying on that path and finding better ways to do it. The next thing I love to do is connecting with people that love the same things as me and spending time with those people. That makes me very happy. And then helping other people achieve their goals makes me even more happy. And then helping someone get a house off the street makes me even more happy. Yeah.
there's no other way, and there's no bigger happiness than the happiness that you bring to others. And that's been validated over and over again by many people. But are there small things that you go to, like anything you discover that works for you that just relax you immediately or bring you happiness?
I think I love to travel.
Travel. Travel as in what specifically? Travel.
Seeing new places, exploring, meeting new people from different places and cultures is something I love to do. Because I love to be spontaneous. So I like to just get on a plane, do something, go somewhere I've never been before, and just do it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So a few shorter questions. Tell me one of, subsequent to your childhood, as you were running businesses, right? One event that had the biggest impact on you as an entrepreneur, as a leader, that shaped you the way you believe who you are now?
There's so many. I have to say it's the belief in yourself, you know. It's the, you know, so I told you about the story when I was in sales. In 2008, I got divorced and literally had no money.
What a year in time to get divorced, between the collapse of financial
It was
markets.
right in the middle of the subprime.
Yeah.
And my question was, I'm sick of this. How can I make $1 million? How can I be a millionaire? So I got divorced, and it was the best day of my life, by the way, because it wasn't a happy marriage. And I had this idea, and literally in that idea, I made $12 million in that year.
How did that happen?
I found a hack, and the hack was, because I'd been in the hotel industry and the timeshare industry, I thought, I knew that not all the rooms were used in hotels and resorts. So I said to a hotel, I said, listen, if I could find a way to get people to spend more money in your hotel, would you be interested in listening to that? And they said, of course we would, yeah. So I said, can you give me some free rooms? Because I believe that if you give me a free room and people don't get a room bill when they check out, they're going to spend more money in the hotel on food and beverage and entertainment. So I tested it with a few people, and it proved to be true. And I said, right, so we've got all these free rooms. And I created a vacation incentive program. And I packaged it into like a voucher. And I sold it to companies. I said, listen, I can supply you a $2,000 holiday for $50. And I guarantee you your sales are going to increase by at least 15 to 20% in the next few days if you attach it to a product. Buy an iPhone, get a free holiday. So I learned about value proposition. That idea, my second client was Citibank, and they bought 10,000 vacations from me at $65 each. $650,000 sale. And I found also that not everybody used it.
So hold on, just so we all understand. You were offering to employers, major corporations, packages that their employees could use.
Not just their employees, but their customers.
Their customers also.
So my customers became Mercedes, BMW. So if you bought a camera, you could actually get a free holiday.
So they get some other item, but along with it, they get this tremendous
So the value of the product
proposition.
became, the perceived value, the camera was $1,000, became $3,000.
Yes.
So people would love that.
So you had one entity selling cameras, and then you had all these deals with hotels. But you said, I guarantee you things are going to go up. How? You didn't know when you started.
I know, but I researched it. I did beta tests on it, and I found that people responded to it.
I see.
Yeah, so I was able to confidently say that.
How did you come up with that very idea in the first place to do that?
I just kept asking that question, how can I make $1 million?
Well, but we could all
And the answer came. The answer came to me. But it was based also on my experience in that industry, in the hotel industry, in the vacation industry.
So you saw empty rooms, you said there's got to be something I could do with it.
Exactly, because I saw people I knew that everybody takes a holiday. Everybody loves to holiday. The people are most happy when they're on holiday, not when they're at work.
And if you could give it to them for free, that's even better.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, a few quick questions. Do you prefer to spend time alone with somebody? Just quick
Both.
blitz.
Both. I love my space on my own because that gives me creative space. If I'm with my girlfriend in a relationship, that's going to take attention. I can't be alone when I'm with someone because then that person will say, you're not paying attention to me, or, why are you not talking to me and stuff like that. And this is actually a very big mistake people make in relationships. They've got to allow each other space. I need space because I need to go back to my imagination to think of new things to do that fulfill me and other people. So I have to do that. But now my girlfriend understands that. So that's an interesting thing. So I love my own space. I'll do an event like this. I'll go home and people think I'm going to go and party after a big event. I don't. I go home. I watch TV. I don't watch TV. I watch movies.
I see.
And then I just switch off, and it's the most amazing thing because I've done a fantastic event. I spoke to thousands of people, come home, watch a film, get up in the morning whenever I want, make a coffee, and it's amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Marco, it was a real pleasure.
Me too.
I'm wishing you lots of luck now that you need it, and look forward to catching up some other time as well.
You too.
Thanks for
the time.
My pleasure. Let me know what you think of this in the comment section below. Leave questions for my guests for the follow-up interviews. And as always, please like, subscribe, and share.